Hi.
Hello guys, if you're brand new to my channel, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, today we are continuing on our Colleen Hoover journey. We're talking about Layla. This book was so highly anticipated for me. I feel like it's the only Colleen Hoover book that I've truly seen like mixed reviews on. Believe it or not, I'm not a person that typically seeks out book reviews. It's just, I really like to form my own opinion. I love to talk to you guys about books in the comments and kind of like go back and forth, but in general, in my free time, I don't seek it out. I just want to read the books and see how I feel about them myself. But this book in particular popped up so many different times on my TikTok over the past several months, and people seem to not like it. Like the overall reviews that I had seen where people just didn't like it or felt weird about it, and I was like, what is with this book? Like, everybody loves Colleen Hoover. I need to check this out. I knew it was a very different type of story. I knew it was a bit of a paranormal romance sort of situation. A lot of people typically compare it to Verity, which is her completely wild, crazy thriller book that it made me so nauseous, but I absolutely loved it. That was actually the first Colleen Hoover book I ever read. And so a lot of people kind of compare the two just because they are so different from her other books, which are just more like traditional contemporary romances. But y'all, I read this book in practically one sitting. Like, I was enthralled. I was fascinated. It was so different, not just from anything Colleen Hoover has done, but just different from anything I feel like I've read in general. Like, she never ceases to amaze me at like everything that she can do. Like, it just shows how good of an author she is. So I want to talk to you guys about this book, but I feel like this is a book that's nearly impossible to talk to without any form of spoiler. Like, even just the basic premise of the story, I went into it like completely blind. Like, I knew, okay, it's a paranormal romance. That's all I knew. And so I just went into it and I felt like I had a really good and interesting reading experience because I had no idea what was gonna happen. So if you wanna like preserve that completely, maybe don't watch this video. Like, I'm gonna try my best, but I'm just warning you that like in this first part where I'm generally talking about the book, there are certain things that are gonna have to be like a tiny bit spoiled for me to even generally get you the gist of what's going on. And then at the end, I think I am just gonna go full-blown spoilers because I wanna discuss this. This was like a really interesting book that like got in your head and made you think, and yeah, I just want to talk about it. This is like the longest intro ever, but let's get into it. So, Layla. This book follows a guy named Leeds. That was one interesting thing right off the bat about this book. It's the first Colleen Hoover book that I've read so far that is fully in the male's perspective. I know I've seen her jump around before, but like typically her books are from the female perspective. This one was entirely from the male. His name was Leeds, like the city in England. Basically the book starts out and Leeds is in a wedding band. He's at a wedding, he's playing in the band, and he sees this girl. She's dancing around like a crazy person, having a good time, and they end up meeting after the wedding, kind of hitting it off. Her name is Layla. This wedding is taking place at this bed and breakfast that's like out in the middle of nowhere, and yeah, Layla and Leeds just completely like are enamored with each other. They have like, it's totally like a movie, like the conversation they have, the first kind of like chapter and scene where they meet each other and like what happens, like Layla just like lights up Leeds' life, and he's like he's never been a person that's been really interested in a relationship, and like Layla just seems like she's from some other world. Like, he's just enamored with her. So they very quickly get into a relationship with each other. They pretty much like don't separate after that moment. And we learn a lot about Leeds. Like, he is a really talented musician, but he just hasn't like pushed himself. Like, he likes to be creative and he's really talented in private, but he really hasn't like put himself out there. So he just like works in this wedding band like for fun. But Layla sees his potential and is like, oh, like your music is incredible, like is really pushing him. He has like a really small fan base, but not much of anything. But shortly after Layla and Leeds get together, like a couple months, Layla basically gets in an accident. I'm not gonna say exactly what happened, but she gets in an accident that never leaves her quite the same. She has to undergo a lot of treatment, therapy, to kind of heal herself. And we kind of jump forward after that. Several months have gone by, and to kind of like rekindle their romance. Not that their relationship has necessarily gone downhill, but it's just like Layla has gone through something really traumatic and she's been healing, and so obviously like their whole honeymoon relationship was kind of put on the back burner. It's more just like taking care of each other, letting Layla heal. And so now Leeds, in an effort to kind of like rekindle their romance, like have some fun together, he decides to book that bed and breakfast that they originally met at, and they're gonna go back there and stay for a week. The bed and breakfast, since they had been there, actually closed down, and now it's just like vacant. So he ended up finding who owns it, and they let him rent it out for a week, so it's going to be only them at this bed and breakfast. Basically, shortly after they get there, really weird things start to happen, things that don't make sense, things kind of making their own noises, moving on their own, just really creepy stuff that when I was reading this at night, I just totally got the heebie-jeebies. I'm like, what is happening here? And it becomes kind of obvious that there's something paranormal happening, something supernatural, just something isn't quite right. And so Leeds basically starts to like look into this online, like research, and he ends up on like a paranormal investigator board, and he's looking into it, and people are like offering him advice and ways to figure out what's going on. And this is where it's gonna get like a little spoilery. I'm not gonna give away everything, but if you are already interested, maybe just stop and go read the book. But I will say this spirit does make itself known to Leeds, and this spirit has a name, and its name is Willow. And basically Willow and Leeds kind of find a way to communicate with each other. Willow can move things so she can like type on a keyboard. She can kind of like write things down, and when he says like, you know, move this to say yes, like she can do that, or like knock this over to say no, whatever. She's capable. And then things start to get a little wild when Willow realizes that she can actually overtake Layla's body. So basically, yeah, we kind of have this interesting situation happening. Layla is not quite herself. She's been through this accident. Like, her and Leeds' relationship is kind of like a little on the fritz. Like, she's just constantly like medicating herself. She's not quite like she's just not quite who she was when Leeds met her, and he loves her, like with everything in him, he loves her. But then this like ghost has like made this appearance, and it's like, it's a very interesting concept, because it's not just like a traditional ghost. Like, it's like the ghost has no memories, and it's like, he talks to Willow and he's trying to figure out like, why are you here? Where did you come from? Like, what was your life like? And she just doesn't know anything. So he kind of takes it upon himself to try to figure out like why Willow is here, how he can help her. And it's really just like a fascinating, enthralling story. Like, from the beginning, I just had the hardest time putting it down. Like, she just wham bam came out here. Like, the first couple chapters went so fast. Like, Colleen Hoover does not waste any time. She doesn't put any fluff in her books. She gets straight to the point. So crazy things start happening pretty early on, and I thought this book was so interesting, so crazy at moments. Like, I just wanted to know so badly like what was happening, what was going on. It's also a book that is jumping from present to past. I'm not gonna give away what's going on in the present, because that's like a huge crazy thing, but you're kind of seeing present day what's happening, and then jumping back to the events of like Leeds and Layla meeting, and then like their time in this bed and breakfast, and then what's currently happening today. And then you see like from there on out the end of the story. It was bonkers. But yeah, from here on out, for real, if you haven't read this book, you probably don't want to watch anymore, because I just want to generally talk about it. The thing that I saw the most about the negative reviews is a lot of people didn't like Leeds as a character. And I can understand, okay? Obviously, you're with this woman, you're in love with her. She gets shot by one of your crazy fans that was your ex-girlfriend for half a second, and she's jealous. She gets shot, nearly freaking dies, and now you bring her here to this new place, and you're like over here falling in love with a ghost and letting the ghost use Layla's body. Like, I can understand why you're like, what the heck? But it's like, I don't know, I liked it. Maybe I'm a horrible person, but I could understand. Like, Layla obviously was not seeming like herself, and I could tell that very early on, like the way that she was had become really insecure, and like how she was just completely medicating herself, like wasn't remembering small things, like just she became a not fun person to be around. And I know I kept telling myself like, oh, it's not her fault, like she was in this accident, like you can't blame her. But then when it all was revealed and it just made so much sense. I mean, I will say it was a little crazy, the whole concept of like, whenever the man was like explaining, oh, a soul entered the air and then another soul entered the air and they went into the wrong body. So Layla, it was a bit like, okay, Colleen. It was a little far-fetched, and it was just one of those things where you're like, okay, just go with it. Just go with it. And it was a crazy concept, but she made it make sense in the best way that it could. And then once it was revealed that all along, like literally whenever we thought Willow was Sable, I was like, no. I was so upset. And I was like, this is awful. Like I was nauseous about it. And then once we realized that she was Layla all along, I thought it was beautiful. Like a lot of people are still pissed at Leeds. Like they still think that he's like a crappy boyfriend, crappy fiance, and like the way that he was selfishly like using Layla to get to Willow. But it's like, in the end, it's like he wasn't though. He was in love with Layla all along, and he loved her so much that even though it wasn't her, he fell in love with her all over again. Like I thought that was so beautiful in the end, like the way it all worked out and the way that it's like he knew something wasn't right with her, and they found their way back to each other. Like I don't know, it was a bonkers story. But, and I will say, if I was Layla's sister, oh, I'd be throwing hands. I would not have any trust for Leeds. That was craziness. Whenever like Willow, or I keep getting the name, there's so many names. Whenever Layla would like, or I guess Sable, whatever, would re-overtake Layla's body and was like, he's tying me up, whatever. And then she sees the scratches right whenever it said that Layla was scratching him when he was trying to drown her so that she could get back in her body. I was like, they're gonna see the scratches. They're gonna see the scratches, and the sisters saw them. I would have lost my ever-loving mind if I thought that my sister's freaking husband was kidnapping her and tying her up and trying to drown her. But I mean, I guess they got through it. I don't know. All of this is to say I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Honestly, on the verge of 5 every time I think about it. Like I'm not sure what's quite keeping me from making it 5, but I'm just gonna go with my gut. I loved it. It's one of my absolute favorite Colleen Hoover books that I've read so far. I really liked Verity, and I really love this book, and I'd be so interested to see her write more books like this, more books that have like interesting elements to it, supernatural, thriller. Like I don't even care. She's good at it all, clearly, and she's just such a good storyteller. Like I love her romance, but like this was just different. It was so different, and I feel like that's probably why a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people didn't like Leeds, a lot of people didn't like the way he was using Layla, but I think a lot of people in general that probably read Colleen Hoover books are not used to or expecting this type of story. But I love this kind of stuff, so for me, it made it even better. But yeah, this was so rambly. But if you guys read Layla by Colleen Hoover, I would love to know your thoughts down below. If you hated it and you don't agree with me, totally let me know. But if you also loved it, can we all sign a petition to make Colleen Hoover write more weird books that like make your brain hurt? Because she freaking rocks at it. But yeah. That is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to y'all very soon. Bye.